in school where the teacher has to have the lesson plan. So
Mhm.
the teacher has to control the classroom. Same thing with teaching yoga classes. It's like, you better know your sequence and your theme, or it's going to be a shit class. Hey everyone, it's Kate Stillman with Wellness Pro Academy, and I'm here with Kate Dupays, who's in Française.
What?
I'm making it rhyme. And we're talking about who you want to attract versus who you're attracting, it sounds like, for your club. So you're an outdoor guide, a ski patroller, a nurse, a yoga teacher, a mother of 3 boys. And it's all about good physical health, mental health, planetary health, finding the right price point that's feasible for your local community and still appropriate for you, and what to do with members who want to renew. So let's just start with celebrating that part when you have members that want to stick around, because that's the sign of a club that's working.
Yes. Yes.
Good. So before we get into who you're attracting, let's get into like, who's the club currently working for?
So the club is currently working for, it's a small club. I have just five members, and a new member who's just said yes to start in a couple weeks. So these 5 members, they're not people who are overweight. They're a very typical French, crowd here in the mountains. They're active. They're in pretty good health. I have one who's a yoga teacher, and so what's working for them is the community. They're loving the community. They want to go deeper in the community. And so we found ourselves going pretty deep, where sometimes I'm a little bit feeling out of my depth and not necessarily at ease, and kind of thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
So can you say more about that? Like, where you feel out of your depth? Like, give me very specifics with that.
Well, I don't have any specific training aside from yoga. That has been my spiritual path. That has been my training for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But even that with yoga, at the beginning of my path, I was afraid to go deep. I was afraid. I just wanted to be that person that was like, I'm into the asana, I'm into the structure, I'm into the physical form and the movement, but everything else scared me. And I kind of understand why, who I am and where I come from, but that all scared me. So the deep
why? Because of trauma, or because of something else, or why?
I think just because from a young age, what was highlighted in, who Kate was the physical aspect. I was a gymnast.
Okay, so it's out of league more in the spiritual and subtle body aspects. Is that right?
Yeah, I was never held up as far as someone who was like, oh, she's got great ideas, and oh, she's such a thinker, So I just saw myself as someone who wasn't a deep thinker, who wasn't into. And so I'm realizing that, wow, I do love, I'm listening to all the Alan Watts recordings, and I'm loving going deep in there. So I feel like I'm attracting these people that I want to attract, but on the other hand, I feel like I don't necessarily have the skills.
Okay. So pause right there. There's a belief in there that you need to be the expert. Is that true?
There's a belief there that, I'm kind of a fraud and I'm not trained enough. I don't think I need to be an expert. I've really embraced the go for a B-, and I just,
okay. But this is different than that even. So it's a role. So there's different roles with leadership. And one of the things that I've seen in, I really like Sally Hogshead, her personality test, How to Fascinate, because she's basically like, how are you fascinating? And leaders are fascinating in really different ways. So I'm more of like a, like prestige thought leader, avant-garde, kind of like a dynamo in the creator space. And that's one way of leading. Another way of leading is through being a connoisseur of experiences. Another way of leading is like building a network. Another way of leading is through being a supporter. And that shows up in wealth dynamics as well. Like another way of leading is like being a star, and really just like modeling the way. So based on that, again, like the belief that you need to know all the answers or lead towards the depth is really different than I need to facilitate a conversation that orients towards depth.
Yeah. And that's That's what I'm doing, and I fall into that category of supporter. All of my jobs, all my roles, that's my strength for sure.
Great.
But I feel more
Great.
comfortable. I And so that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm supporting this group. I'm facilitating the conversations.
Facilitating. Yeah. And that's a huge value because often when we take ourselves out of the like, I need to know all the answers, and we put ourselves into, I need to build the structure for a conversation and a community that orients towards depth, then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I can do that. I
Yeah.
can do that.
When I get excited about that, I get excited about, what's the next structure?
Yeah.
What's the next piece of,
So you can bring that
what's,
to them. Like, where do
yeah.
you guys want to go next? Like, what's working? What else do we want to do? How is this club trying to evolve? And if they're naturally orienting towards depth and wanting to stick around, they're gonna be like, I'm so glad you asked. I have some ideas.
Oh,
Some people will say that. Other people will be like, I have no idea, but like that sounds like fun to figure out. And other people will be like, you guys figure it out and I'm coming. Right. And that's doesn't matter to me who's who and what's what. I mean, I show up differently in different communities. So same person could show up differently in your community than at work or at school or with their family or so it's just giving people an opportunity for identity evolution. And that's really where co-creative clubs go. Is
mhm.
clubs go towards co-creativity, and the job of the leaders to build the structure. You'll keep hearing me say that, like the job of the leaders to build the structure for the club to evolve, a way to communicate, depths around convictions, around habits, around that. And then the club takes on a life of its own. It's like it really is like a culture. So I
Yeah.
was soaking some faro, Faro, is that how you say that? Old world grain, faro, in some water with some like whey, which is like the watery stuff that comes out of yogurt when you make yogurt into cheese, right? So I'm like soaking it in there, and then like this morning it was all mixed with the faro, so the whey changed color when I strained it before I made my crackers out of the faro. And it's like that's kind of how a club works. It's like you just have to kind of make the cracker. It will develop its own culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you present it that way, it's like, I have a club. I build the structure for the club. Yeah, I have some expertise in yoga and parenting and, circadian rhythm habits. But this club, it also does this and this and this.
Yeah. So I'm coming around to that idea that that's what I'm doing.
Right.
And I have asked my members, okay, I want you guys to start thinking about what you want it to look like.
Good.
Uh, but as you're talking, I'm realizing like I'm scared for some reason to actually then have the conversation with them. Like,
It's
okay,
so just you use liberating
but
structures just like we did in Lisbon.
yeah, so
Just
maybe I need,
that's it's just a session. It's and
yeah,
it's really fun too, is like in liberating structures, like 15 prints, 50, well, the 9 whys is really good for this. And so is 15% solutions.
I don't know
And
that one.
so is like Winfie. What I need from you is it's okay. It's all on the website. They're all there. My point being is like, that's the cool thing about co-create. Like, this is where, in like, in school where the teacher has to have the lesson plan. So
Hmm.
the teacher has to control the classroom. Same thing with teaching yoga classes. It's like you better know your sequence and your theme, or it's going to be a shit class for the most part. Unless you're an expert and you can walk in and just sense the energy in the room and spontaneously theme and sequence, which a lot of us get there. But like the first 10 years is donkey work of like, no, you got to figure out what the sequence is and what the theme is and
Yeah.
lead people through an experience. Uh, what will happen next is this, you actually realizing that doesn't work. It's not about you being the expert. It's not about you being the teacher. It's about you sitting back with a nice cup of tea and being like, what's really working in this club? Like, how have I already facilitated this?
Yeah. Um, so what I'm hearing, what I'm thinking is I should, as far as where I'm putting my energy, certainly stop worrying about whether or not I can facilitate less sweet, what's next, but to to really hone in on these liberating structures and the structure.
Yeah, that's just it. That's exactly it. And so then it doesn't matter the, continuity or the year two people, because it's like, it's a dynamic organism. So
So
now I have a jar of the farro and whey mix, right? It's like the
yeah,
whey and it's got some essence of farro. And it's like, what will I do with it? It's a living culture. It's becoming more complex,
yeah,
meaning it has a different level of microbial diversity than just the whey. So I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Should I dump it in some sauerkraut? Should I build some other sort of like garlic juice out of it? What else is it trying to become next? And the more you see that it's a culture that's evolving within, your job is building the structures and facilitating the culture to evolve, including asking them who they want in it next. Like what kind of, and then have them give like, hey, do you have a friend who
well, and that's
needs,
interesting to say that, because it's something that sparked where I feel like, why am I feeling uneasy? Because the new member who's coming in, she's a friend of a woman who's in it, and they've talked a lot. And, you know, my member has given her the idea that this is what we're doing. It's the spirit of evolution, and we are evolving, and we're having these good conversations. And she's evolved. I mean, they're all evolving in their relationships. They, one or two maybe have lost some weight without really trying, but none of them came in with major body problems.
yeah,
So she has sold this friend, and now I've talked to her and 2 times, and she says she's in. And I'm like, she's like a 31-year-old who has no physical problems. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
good,
So I'm still going to lead her through the habits and still have that as
yeah,
our framework, because I've
yeah,
told them this is our structure. It's part of the structure,
yeah.
and it's important structure, and I think I keep coming up with different ways to approach the habits so they're not boring. Um,
Well, look at it this way
but it
too.
feels a little bit
Do you
strange.
think she wants the 31-year-old? Do you think she will want to have children? Do you know? Did you
So
ask her?
she's grappling with some of these big questions. So that's partly
Well,
why
that's why she's there. And say
then
she
that's one of the
does.
questions. What do
Right?
do I want to have kids? And
So say she does. Say she's like, I do. And now she has this habit training,
yeah,
right? And she has you as a mentor. And you guys have a close relationship because she was in your club.
that's
Just like
true.
you. Don't you kind of feel like you could ask me anything? Like if you were just like on the side
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing. So,
yeah,
right? Uh no, seriously. And that's a thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like that's a value. And if you're 31 and you're thinking you might want to get pregnant by the time you're 35 and you're grappling with this and that, and like to work with you, and you've got 3 boys, and a lot of people would say like you're absolutely living the dream. You're in the mountains, you're in
yeah,
France, you're teaching and leading from your heart. You've learned what you've really wanted to share. It's like that there's a role in that. And so sometimes even pausing and noticing, because the typical Vata type insecurity, like Vatas and Pittas it was so fascinating. I was listening to Andrew Huberman in this interview, and they were talking about the difference between like exercise and what is it called? When you move
oh,
without, it's like lean or leap, or what is it called?
yeah. Shoot, I can't remember. Right.
It's that. It's like when you're burning energy just from like fidgeting, it has to be unconscious, right?
Yeah,
And then it was so funny because they didn't know they were talking about the body types. They started talking about like the Vata person who's just like fidgeting and constantly dispersing energy. And then they talked about the Pitta person who just gets hot and their body just is like releasing all this, like generating heat and releasing heat, like the Pitta
yeah,
type.
yeah,
So, just back to like the Vata type emotion, the default emotion that you've been trained into is something like the
yeah,
way to lead is to teach and be the expert. And if I'm not the expert, then I'm going to be insecure. So it's something like that. And then there's another layer of it around like, I need to doubt why people are coming in the value they're getting. And if you can just shift both of those of like, my job's to build the structure, and B, like, let me actually receive from my members. I had to train myself to do this because I didn't naturally do it. I had to receive consciously the value my members were getting from the work I was doing. Even the
Yeah.
prospects, even the people that didn't sign up, that there was a value they were getting from me having the structure of the club.
Yeah. 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 Receiving that really, really. I
Receiving it.
know.
For you just to pause at the end of the day before you fall asleep and be like, you're holding this cool space for these 6 people, and like, what are they getting? And then just notice what comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been asking myself that question, who's trying to find me? Who needs me? And so
Great. So run a structure with that with your 6 members.
how?
Like, who's trying
Or
to find us? Who's trying to find our club?
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because
Okay.
clubs get better with, like, I mean, it's actually, it follows a law of nature, which is diversity. So
Yeah.
if we even look at microbiome diversity, a human is healthier the more microbial diversity they have. It's like the number one measurement of microbiome is diversity of species, right? So a sick person has very few eubiotic species and very few dysbiotic species, and the dysbiotic species are few, but they have bred like crazy. It's like Walmart,
Yeah.
right? It's the same damn store everywhere in the world. It's like the same thing, and it's all shit, right? I mean, some of it we need, but like a lot of it is just plastic, right? And that's kind of what that's what dysbiotic bacteria happen. And so when you think about like a healthy club, every member every member is a eubiotic species. Like they're like pro-life. Eubiosis is healthy. It's the same as like eustress. It's like positive stress. It's growth oriented. Dis is disease.
Yeah. So I need to, because I'm finding that the maybe the two kapha really caught, all of my members
Yeah.
so far, a lot of vata pitta, I'm not surprised that that's, who maybe I attract or have an easier time working with or, comprehending, relating to, because my two kapha warm leads, one was like, she was, yes, 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 I'm in. And then she just ghosted me, like not ghosted me, but very kapha and very kapha imbalanced and very like, but for diversity, it would be
Yeah.
nice to have some different energy in the group.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but so that leads me to the marketing piece. I created a little concept visual that I was quite proud of. My husband did look at it and he was sort of like, where's the yoga piece? Where's the body piece? And I was like, well, I need a C word. And so cycle circadian, like this circadian rhythm. For me, that then encompasses all of the body part. But as far as my marketing, what do I need? Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But wondering as far as who I want to attract, what I need to change, and how far do I go down that path of being like, we are really a group that's going deep, and we're doing the depth work, and we're this.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So that's good because you're like, I mean, you're right. You're right where you should be. I'll just show you in terms of like where the curriculum goes that will help. And I think my team is getting this up like ASAP. So there's 2 different main components in leads. And one is having a simple funnel so that when people hear about you that they're guided through a process and then to become a club member. And the second is like connecting with hubs. And in both of these, there's there's work around the avatar of like who is it that I'm really helping with what. So some people call this the niche. Some people call it the avatar. So this avatar identity worksheet, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
And so you can get started on this. But to some degree, in like a smaller town, it's like you get really creative with it because what they may have in common is location, right? Like by being local, that's part of it. But understanding too, like who you were a few steps ago. I mean, even think about it, like before you met people in yoga, before you went on your yoga teacher training, right? Like there's a feeling often of like, there's something else, I'm missing out, kind of isolated, looking for depth of wisdom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Looking for community around depth of wisdom, looking for deeper conversations. So it might not be as much as like they are, you know, if that's like all I described is like a psychographic more than a demographic. So you may
Mhm.
have ages like, 18 to 80 in terms of
Yeah, that's
demographics.
yeah, because my age range is, 21 to 53,
Yeah.
and all women, but not all, not even all mothers. One woman doesn't have kids. And that makes me think. I had a private yoga today with a woman who, um, all these questions, but what's blocking her is the feeling. The first thing she said to me was like, people think I'm crazy. I'm so different. I'm not normal. I'm not like them. And I'm like, yeah, me neither. So thinking
There
back
you
to
go. So then
before
it's
I
like
did all the yoga
that's
teacher
part of the
training.
marketing is it's like looking for a new experience.
Yeah.
Like looking for depth, like want to come and want to check out a growth group. It's like kind of different. It's like throwing out things that are different. So when you look at biggest source of pain, it is kind of that. It's like, oh my gosh, like I am not
Fitting
satisfied
in.
with a half a bottle of wine at night. Like I mean, living in France, right? Like that's not what gets me off. Like deep connection and growing and evolving and being a better parent and being a better person and
Yeah.
figuring out my next chapter. And maybe that's what your group is. And what the habits do is they bring people home to themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where the habits fit in. And what happens out of habit evolution is identity evolution. It happens every time. It's like so predictable in a great way that it's like a law of nature. Once your habits are dialed in with circadian habits, you're seated in yourself, you're svasta, you're awake to who you are. Now, now you get fired up with vision and purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I do have one woman who's, she's not made much progress as far as the habits. Very vata, very, yeah,
It can take
very
people
disorganized.
time, like the container can really take people time. Like I'm not that attached. Like in some ways I'm super attached to member results and then in other ways I'm not that attached to member results because I can sometimes what happens is so deep and slow. It's just a very like in the gunas in Ayurveda, it's like deep,
Yeah.
slow. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's this like huge breakthrough and everything just like click, 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 clicks into place. But they had to go through the deep, slow energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's,
That's why the club's a year,
yeah.
and then they can renew. It's like you have the container for them to go fast and slow.
Yeah. No, that's helpful to hear you say that sometimes you're not that attached to member results, because I know that we are, in general, quite attached to member results. We
And designing for it, right? So if you have a club that's 4 months, this is what happened in the club conversation the other day. Someone's like, my club's 4 months, and I'm like, it won't work.
Yeah. I mean, I had one of the women 2 months in, not even 2 months in, she's like, is there gonna be a second year? Because
Yeah, I need this. So
that
then,
was
so then you sit down with her and you bring your phone and you hit your recorder, just like we did in Lisbon. It's like you hit record and you're like, why do you want it to be a second year? Like, what's working? What do you
yeah.
like about it?
So maybe that's what I need to have one of our group calls just be that, do some of the liberating structures
Yeah. And then do
and
some one-on-ones with them too. And just be like 15-minute one-on-ones. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and I'm trying to get to know where we're evolving together with this club. And it's
yeah.
co-creative. So you can give me your input. It's like, what would make this an even better experience for you? And they might just say, like, I would love it if you gave me your weekly meal plan every week. And you're like, oh, great. Cause then it makes it easier for me to plan my meals for my family anyways. And like, cause I'm now doing it for 2 reasons. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it makes you more organized. It saves you time. And it came from them.
Right. And gives me the next idea, what the
Gives you
next
the
step
next
is.
idea. They will give you all the ideas you need.
Yeah. Well, and usually my ideas come from you. Oh, that's my next step. Okay.
Okay, now they're going to come from them. So it's like, what are they afraid of? Like they probably afraid of the um, status quo, really. Like
Mhm.
that the status quo of culture isn't really the most exciting thing, and it's like they might feel like they're going through the motions, and
Yeah.
So when you go through this, and you can kind of go through this with them, I mean, this is a sales conversation. And so as you're doing it, and you guys are going to get a ton more training in club on sales. And that's, it's week 3. So in this, you're going to also develop a, there's a few core things.
Because where are we right now? Where are we
You guys are only in week 2. You're only in week 2. What am I looking for?
I'm trying to keep up this time.
Yeah, keep up, and it's okay, because the beauty of this is it's only 6 weeks of curriculum and support for the whole year, so implementation for the whole year. So you're going to fill out something like this, which is an advantage language chart. This is in week 3.
Right.
And you figure out how to label the problems, and so some of yours might really be around this like sort of stagnant relationships, lack of purpose.
Yeah, that's going to be helpful. You passed something along. I clicked on an article on pain points. I think you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would.
Nurturing lower priority activities.
Yeah. Right. And it's like going through the motions. Like that might be part of their problem. They just feel like they're going through the motions. So when you look at like, what are they afraid of? They're afraid of like, this is their precious life. Yeah. So this will help. And all I've got to say is like, you're in the right place. You're asking the right questions. I'm advising you at this phase. It's like, you're going to turn into your members, for the co-creative, it's like, that's your job, is to now really co-create with them and use the structures to do it and let them experience that, because when they do, they'll be even more excited about what you guys are doing, because now they're essential and participate, like they're steering.
Yeah.
And then new members will come in and they'll learn how to steer from the existing members.
Yeah.
And then your job is like, you just kind of, it's like, organization management. You're organizing them, and then getting them, again, I'm just going to repeat the things I said, like getting them to like, hey, who's like that? Who do you know that's like that? Because I'd love to talk to them this week. That's it. Like if you would introduce us, that'd be great.
I feel like the club is going great, I didn't get a new member so it was February, May, September, and my mantra all summer was 3 members in September, 3 members, and I had one who was essentially on board, and so obviously my engagement.
To me, that speaks to leads, right? You're like, when you go into week 3, one simple funnel, the hub hustle. When in week 2, this whole week 3 of setting appointments, and then week 4 of like generating leads to set those appointments. That's the majority of your work. Okay. That's going to be the majority of your work in this next year. Is that it's just like 3.2, setting appointments, and all the lessons in 4. And you might find in 4 that like you don't need content, you don't need 4.5, but you might not even need 4.3, but you might need 4.1 and 4.2 to be doing those activities weekly in order to set the number of appointments you want to sell out your club. And don't worry about it. Just know that like that's where your focus is going to be next, and just be like stoked that you've got a club that's working.
Yeah,
in your little town.
And I do have more leads after having a summer of in-person classes and in-person conferences and things like that, but still not enough. But overall, I feel positive. I feel a positive energy moving forward, and I feel like I'm on the cusp of something shifting.
And how old are your boys?
They are 14, 11, and 7.
Yeah. So like, given that, like, I would say like, wow, it's really cool that you got your club off the ground with like 3 kids living at home, and you're the cook, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a lot. And so
a lot, because of COVID, the ski areas were closed. And then he had a shoulder injury last ski season, at the very start of the ski season. And so he's been out. So he's been around a lot. He's very helpful.
Good. So then the time that he's opening up for you is going to go into 3.2 and then everything in leads. And that's where you're going to spend the majority of your time. is building your club, building the membership in your club. And we'll guide you through it. That's why you're in here.
That's why I'm here, but technically I'm out in May, so I don't know what.
Well, what'll happen is you'll make a whole bunch of money between now and then you'll decide whether or not you want to, stick around and break the next glass ceiling or do the next thing with us, like that's what it's, that's why we restructured to Wellness Pro Academy. Is like, I got like the market had changed, things had changed. And it was like, let's make this super effective, given that we're going into 2023. And that's really what everything's geared for. And you'll feel it in the next couple of months. You'll feel the momentum. If you're doing those activities, I mean, you're going to be generating more. You're going to be generating a lot more appointments. And if you're generating more appointments, you're going to have to get better at sales. That's all week 3. And you'll just stay right in there. And that's your yoga practice. Like, that's your business of yoga practice. Is this just that? And, it's sometimes people have a negative orientation to that. I really don't. It's like, what's the hard thing to do now? I mean, what it's like skiing and all of a sudden there's like rocks and a cliff. I mean, you're in the French Alps. It's like, okay, this is here now. And there's a sweet stash of paddle right below it. So I gotta, maybe I gotta take off my skis and hike down 20 feet and then strap back in and hit the paddle.
Yeah, you gotta do the hard stuff. You gotta do the hard stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. So Targi, we've got about close to 100 inches so far. And so we've just, and the mountain's closed, so we're skinning up, which is like backcountry for beginners. It's like the best with the kid and the dog and the kid's friend. And so Indy, it's her first year on AT gear and figuring it out. And her friend who was with us is a good year and a half younger. So she's maybe, I don't know, maybe 13. But she's done quite a bit of backcountry, the friend. And so Indy's almost 15 now. And she's just coaching her through it. She's like, and they're yelling at me like, we're going to go slow and easy. And I'm like, yeah, girls. And we get to the top and the friend's helping Indy with the bindings and the skins. And it's just like,
that's great. That's great.
And it's hard at first. So we went again. And then we went again. So we kept doing the hard thing. And now she's like, I know how to use my stuff. I got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm not that averse. Now that I feel more comfortable, now that I believe in what I'm doing, the sales is getting easier. I'm more comfortable selling it. And so I'm not adverse to that, really any of it. And I can see myself getting to that point where I look forward to, the strategy sessions and
and even generating strategy sessions.
A money objection yesterday on my phone call. I was ready for it. And because I told her the price too early, which that's a whole nother conversation, the price point thing, but I was ready for it and it didn't come. That wasn't an objection.
Her deal. Good.
Sorta, but so I was like, thank God.
Yeah. You got through crux.
Yeah. Got through it. So
good.
I feel more clear on who I'm attracted to and why, and it does make sense. It does make sense to me. I just haven't been ready to really own it and embrace it.
Yeah, now you are ready, and so that's what happens. So, and that's what'll happen in May. Don't worry about that at all. Like, you'll just know in May if you want to keep hanging or not.
Well, I will want to keep hanging, but
so then let's go make some money. So it's a no-brainer. That's how I think about it. Like, I mean, I have invested. I just met with my CPA. I've invested $28,000 in training this year, which means I've made a lot of money so that I can invest that and do my other invest. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's like, that's what we're doing. And I'm just trying to teach as lean and clear as I can to get you guys through the cruxes and skiing the fat pow.
That's where, my price point is super low, and I'm seeing it as sort of a flexible thing, or I don't have the same. I want to attract.
Work on your convictions around your price, and so it's not flexible.
I started to, and I went for a higher price, and then she's the one who backed out, and I don't actually think the price was why she backed out. Really, I
It
think it was.
has more usually to do with people understanding long-term value.
I know, and I know there's all those exercises, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm not
And if you're
super
not doing them, then you'll always be stuck at price. And then your
leading them.
conversion rate will always be lower. So that's where, again, week 3, like just kind of relax and just go step by step through the training. As you do it as an expert. Just look at like, am I doing that? Nope. Okay, I better time block for it. I better find an accountability partner to practice with. And then just double down on that. Because if you do that, it's a skill. And you'll nail the skill. Just like Indy can take her skins off and adjust her bindings and put her skins in her bag, and she can do it with her warmer layer on so she doesn't get cold. You know what I mean? Like, it's steps, it's a sequence.
Yeah.
I can't wait to speak with you, woman. Damn, we're gonna have to figure that out.
I know. Well,
Okay.
One over here.
I know. Okay.
Or we
I
can
will.
figure out how to get ourselves over there for more than 6 months. We do 6 months, but we haven't managed to stay for a whole winter. So I haven't skied in Colorado since.
I don't think you've missed much.
I don't know when I skied in Colorado last.
They haven't had snow in it. I think they're done.
I only had one kid at the time, I think. So,
Yeah. I'll see you in a few years when everyone's out of the house. We'll see you in a decade. But you can make a bunch of money between now and then if you want. Okay? Okay. I'm rooting for you, Kate. My pleasure. Bye.
All right. Bye.